Title: I fell in love with my driving instructor and almost ran over his ex. Romantic comedy story, narrated. The steering wheel, the panic, and the furrowed brow. I was 27 years old and still didn't know how to drive. Yes, ridiculous. But in my defense, I grew up with hippie parents who only use bicycles and a neighbor so intense behind the wheel that she generated trauma in me just by watching her park. So there I was, sitting in the seat of an old Toyota Corolla, sweating more than in a job interview, and watching the most handsome instructor in the universe smile at me as if we weren't about to die. Calm down, Mandy. Nobody learns to drive without almost killing a couple of cones, he said in a deep and calm voice. His name was Nate. He was 30 years old, had a 3-day beard and a scar on his eyebrow that gave him just right between dangerous and adorable. What if instead of cones, I kill a person? That's why we're in an empty parking lot. And because the last student ran over a supermarket cart. Ricardo, that was tied. I laughed. And it was at that moment between the handbrake and the mocking look that I knew I was in trouble. First turn and first shock of emotions. In my second class, H ice algo incredible. I managed to spin without screaming. That was great, said Nate, applauding as if he had won an Oscar. I didn't scream. I just breathed heavily. Does that count as progress? Counts as eco. After that, it became a tradition. Every class, he brought me a bottle of water and a silly phrase written on a napkin. The first one said, "You drive better than I did when I was your age." And I already had a fake license. The second, "If you keep braking like that, the brakes will retire." The fourth said, "One of these days I'll invite you for coffee if you don't hit my rearview mirror." And yes, that day, ego, with the rearview mirror intact. The cafe, the confession, and the ex with heels. He took me to a cafe called El Motor y la Menta, a strange mix between vintage mechanics and organic hipsterism. We ate so much that I ended up with foam on my nose and he with muffin crumbs on his beard. "I never date students," she said, suddenly. I turned red, like a tomato in the sun. "And what is this?" "An exception. I love you, Mandy." My stomach did a somersault. But right then, "Nathaniel!" A sharp, elegant, and furious voice sounded from the door. It was his ex-girlfriend, model, lawyer, and owner of a Tesla. He entered as if he were going to testify in a trial, or to kill me with his gaze. I only said, "Is that?" "Yes." Why are his heels so high? It's his way of crushing other people's self-esteem. Si laze final y el casi atropello, casi exam day. Last class, I was so nervous that I forgot where the brake was. And there, as if by malignant design of fate, the ex appeared crossing right, in front of the car, talking on the phone, with a long scarf waving dramatically. "Don't look at her," shouted Nate. "Look at the road." I'm trying, but her perfume is reaching me through the windshield as I braked just in time. She didn't even notice. I fainted, internally. He laughed so hard, he cried. "Did you ever imagine that you would fall in love during a driving lesson?" No, but neither imagine I that would avoid a vehicular homicide with so much style. Driver's license and kissing license I passed, by the skin of my teeth. The evaluator said, "I've seen worse, in movies." Nate was waiting for me outside with a plastic flower that said, "Officially dangerous but legal." And then, without preamble, he kissed me. "Now we can have a real date," he whispered. "Only if you let me drive. Only if you signamos un seguro." Epilogue: the girl who didn't know how to drive and the boy who knew how to brake just in time. Today I have a license, my own car, and a boyfriend who keeps writing me silly messages on napkins. And although I drive better, sometimes I pretend to forget how to put it in reverse, just so he will come, smile at me and say, "Don't worry, Mandy, I'll teach you." And so, between laughter, cookies, driving lessons, my ex-girlfriends with heels, I fell in love. Without brakes, but with direction. Extension of I fell in love with my driving instructor and almost ran over his ex. The real date and the restaurant with waiters, dramatic. Our first official date was at a French restaurant so elegant that the menu had no prices and the waiters spoke as if they were acting in a soap opera. "Do you want to share the beau with bourguignon?" Nate asked. "Is it meat?" "Yes, but it sounds more elegant if you say it with an accent." "What if we order hamburgers somewhere else and pretend we came here?" We laughed so hard that the waiter, he threw us a look as if we were insulting his French grandmother. The night was perfect until, in the middle of dessert, a subject with gelatinous hair appeared who greeted Nate as if they were gym buddies or enemies. "Nate? Bro, you and this girl? Wow. And Ellie?" Ellie equals the ex with high heels. Again, Nate elegantly ignored him. "I, just in case, choked on you. That cherry." When we went out, he asked me, "Are you sure you want to be with someone whose past has more drama than an HBO series?" "Only if your future includes silly series and pizza on the couch." "With shared remote control?" "It depends. Are you one of those who fall asleep at minute 12? He kissed me on the forehead, only when I'm too happy. "Mom, he is not just my instructor L." The news arrived home as gossip arrives in a small neighborhood, by WhatsApp and with emojis. My mother, who lives 3 blocks away and has an infallible emotional radar, appeared one morning. Today with a basket of bread rolls and a look that said, "Confess or I'll get the truth out of you with gluten." So he began, sitting down uninvited. "Is it true that you are dating your instructor?" "How do you know?" "Mrs. Klein on the 5th floor has a cousin who works at the restaurant where they were seen." "Mrs. Klein has a cousin?" "She has 3. But the gossipy one is the youngest. Him I told her everything, even about the napkin with silly phrases." "And is he a good driver?" "Mom, I'm just asking. Because if you're going to crash into someone, at least I want to know if he knows how to use a seatbelt." Birthday party, and the aunt who mistook it for an Uber. I invited Nate to my Aunt Patty's 60th birthday party. My entire family was present, with camera, karaoke, and salad with raisins. Nate arrived with a nervous smile and a bottle of wine that nobody touched because my grandmother only drinks grape juice on principle. Everything was going well until my great-aunt Sylvia mistook him for a waiter. Uber driver. "Young man, can you take me to the dentist after the cake?" I'm not an Uber, ma'am, but you have a responsible face." My mom intervened with a shout from the kitchen, "Sylvia, it's Mandy's boyfriend." And so, without any formalities, my whole family adopted him. They called him son-in-law before we even officially went public on Instagram. The ex attacks. Again, everything is, "I'm doing too well." Of course, that meant the ex had to appear with a burst of drama. Ellie, with her electric Tesla and her always active emotional passport, called it just to speak. I discovered it because Nate, transparent as a fishbowl, couldn't lie when I asked him. "Did you talk to her?" "Yes, but only because I wanted to know if she had her cookbook." The "and" you ran over, symbolically. "And did he have it?" "No." I think it was an excuse to know if I still felt something. I looked at him in silence. He took my hand. "And no, Mandy, I don't feel anything." Nothing of what Ella Busker. And what if she appears with a recipe for cookies with memories? Then you and I make brownies and forget the past. And so, without shouting, without scenes, without uncontrolled jealousy, we close. It's a chapter with maturity, rare but real. First trip together, and the GPS with personality, we decided to take a weekend trip to a cabin in the woods. It seemed like a good idea, until the GPS started to say, "Recalculating. Again." "Seriously, Nate? What's wrong with this GPS?" "I think it developed sarcasm." "Perfect. A passive-aggressive GPS. Don't you want us to also be judged by the Uto?" But the cabin was perfect. It had a fireplace, board games, and a coffee maker that sounded like a steam train. That night, between blankets and hot chocolate, Nate told me, "I never thought that teaching driving would take me to you. I never thought almost running over your ex would be so romantic." We kissed. Slow, without breaks. And it was right at that moment that his phone rang. It was his boss. Nekai told him to return sooner than expected. A replacement had left him stranded. "What if I go with you?" I said. "Sure." Sure as a handbrake going downhill. The final surprise, and the napkin, finitiva. We returned that night. The following day, we went for a walk without a destination. Just for a stroll. We stopped in front of the same parking lot where we met. He took out a napkin. This he didn't have jokes. He only said, "Thank you for crashing into my life." And below, a clumsy drawing of a heart with wheels. I hugged him so hard that we almost activated the horn. "Are you crying?" he asked. He touched my cheek. "No, it's the air. I'm airing out feelings." We kissed again, and I understood something important. Learning to drive wasn't the only thing Nate had taught me. Also, he taught me to let go of fears, to laugh at chaos, and to trust that, although life has curves, it is worth following the path if you have someone who knows when to accelerate and when to brake.